Hello everyone. I hope everyone is doing good. So today we are going to talk about on Kubernetes only. So what happens if Kubernetes cluster got screwed? If someone in the production environment, if they screwed the Kubernetes control plane, so what will be the impact? So those things that we are going to talk about today. So without wasting any time, just get into the video. Okay, so if you're not subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe it so that you will be getting a more informative content like this. I hope you might have enjoyed it. Please do subscribe my channel and do hit like button. Thank you so much. Okay, so kubelet is one of the most important component in the KTS. So if it is down, what is the impact? Pod may become unresponsive or fail to start. The kubelet is responsible for managing the lifecycle of pod on the node, including starting, stopping, monitoring their status. If kubelet is down, pod on that node may become unresponsive or fail to start, which can impact the availability of the application running in the cluster. Node may be marked as not ready. Kubelet is responsible for reporting the health status of node to the Kubernetes control plane. If kubelet is down, the node may be marked as not ready and may be removed from the pool of available nodes for scheduling in new pods, which can impact overall performance and availability of the cluster. Resources usage may be impacted. Kubelet is responsible for managing the resources such as CPU, memory allocated to the pod running on the node. If kubelet is down, resources may usage may become unpredictable or may be improperly managed, which can impact the performance and stability of the node and the application running on it. Node level operation may fail. The Kubernetes is responsible for managing node level operations such as volume mounting, logging, monitoring. If Kubernetes is down, these operations may fail or become unavailable, which can impact the overall stability and the performance of the node and the application running on it. Scheduler is down. Scheduler, it's very important component in the control plane of KTS. So if it is down, what is an impact? Pods that is already running will continue to run without interruption. However, any pending pod will not be scheduled to the to run until the scheduler is back up. Okay, so new pods that are created will remain in a pending state until the scheduler is back up. This means that the pod will not be scheduled to run on any node in the cluster, and they will not be able to start running until the scheduler is operational again. If a node become unavailable, scheduler will not be able to reschedule the affected pod to other nodes until it's back up and running. This could potentially result in application downtime and reduce availability. Manual intervention may be required to restart the scheduler, which can cause the additional downtime and disruption. Okay, we will talk about something about kubeproxy. If kubeproxy is down, what is the impact? Service discovery may be affected. Kubeproxy is responsible for managing the networking rules on each node in the cluster, including managing the service object that provides service discovery for pods. If kubeproxy is down, service may not be accessible or may not route traffic correctly, which can result in pod being unable to communicate with each other or with external resources. Network traffic may be disrupted. Kubeproxy is responsible for configuring the network rules on the each node, including setting up a NAT IP table rule to route traffic between the pod and services. If kubeproxy is down, network traffic may be disrupted or may not be properly routed, which can result in the communication failure or degrade of the performance. Node failure may go undetected. Kubeproxy is also responsible for monitoring the health of the node in the cluster and reporting any failure to the Kubernetes control plane. If kubeproxy is down, node failure may not be detected and may not trigger automatic failover or scaling actions. Security risk may increase. Kubeproxy is responsible for enforcing the network security policies, such as restricting access to the sensitive resources or denying traffic from untrusted resource. If kubeproxy is down, these security policy may not be enforced, which can increase the risk of unauthorized access or other security breaches. Cluster stability may be affected if kubeproxy is down for extended period of time. It may result in other components of cluster becoming unstable or experiencing failure, as kubeproxy plays a critical role in managing the networking and security infrastructure of the cluster. HCD is down. Okay. So HCD, it's one of the most critical component in the Kubernetes control plane. So if it is down, what is an impact? If HCD goes down, the Kubernetes API server loses its access to the stored data, which can cause a wide range of issue for entire cluster and including the inability to create, update, or delete object. If new HCD instance is about to come up, it will start by communicating to the other HCD instance in the cluster to obtain the latest state of the data. Once HCD cluster is fully operational, a new HCD instance is part of the cluster, the Kubernetes API server will be able to access the stored data again and resume the normal operation. Okay, controller is down. So, what is an impact? In Kubernetes, each controller is responsible for managing a specific set of resources and performing tasks such as monitoring resources, health, scaling, and reconciliation. If a particular controller is down, it will only affect that resource that is responsible for managing, and other controller will continue to function normally. So there won't be any major impact. However, if a critical controller, such as the Kubernetes control plane or the kubelet controller, goes down, it have a significant impact on the functionality of the entire cluster. For example, if the Kubernetes control plane is down, it will affect the functionality of the Kubernetes API server, HCD, and other control plane components. This can result in loss of functionality for many controller and service in the cluster. Similarly, if kubelet controller goes down, it will affect the functionality of the kubelet running on the node. This can result in a loss of node level functionality such as ability to monitor, manage the pods running on the node. In summary, if a non-critical controller goes down in Kubernetes, it will only affect the resource that is responsible for managing. However, if a critical controller goes down, it can have a significant impact on the functionality of the entire cluster and result in loss of functionality for many controller and services. Okay, API server is down. So API server is one of the core critical component in the Kubernetes. If this is down and it's going to impact too many things, so we can just check what are all the things it's going to get impacted. Cluster management operation may be impacted. The Kubernetes API server is the central management point for the cluster and is responsible for processing and responding to the requests from the other component of the system. If API server is down, the cluster management operations such as deploying new applications, scaling existing application, or managing the configuration of the cluster may be impacted or may fail altogether. The other one is all about the pod and container management may be affected. The API server is responsible for managing the state of the pod and containers running in the cluster, including scheduling, scaling, and monitoring their health. If API server is down, these operations may be impacted or may not be possible, which can impact the availability and performance of the application running in the cluster. Okay, the cluster-wide event may not be propagated. The API server is responsible for propagating events and status update across the cluster, including changes to the state of the pod, container, and node. If API server is down, these events may not be propagated, which can impact the ability of the other component system to respond to changes in the cluster. Authentication and authorization is also get impacted. The API server is responsible for managing the authentication and authorization for access to the Kubernetes API and for enforcing the certain security policies across the cluster. The API server is down, these policies may not be enforced, which can increase the risk of the unauthorized access and other security breaches. Monitoring and logging may also impact it. The API server is responsible for providing access to monitoring and logging data for the cluster for integrating the external monitoring for logging system. If API server is down, the access to the data may be impacted or may not be possible, which can make it difficult to diagnose and respond the issue in the cluster. I hope you might have enjoyed this video. We'll see you on the another lecture. Thank you so much. Keep supporting.